Good morning and welcome to CROSSFIRE. My name is Agha-Ineh, and I have the encyclopedic Yum Aya Thompson in the studio.
Good morning, Ishioma. Good to have you. And
Aya.
good morning out there. Thank you very much for joining us again on this beautiful Friday morning. All right, today on the show we have a lot in store for you. Yesterday was great discussing the economy with you, and today we're moving away from that and talking about women in politics, particularly the ratio of women in politics coming from some known female role models who have come out to say that we do not have nearly enough women in politics as opposed to the numbers of women we have in our population. What do you think? Do you think we have sufficient representation of women in politics, or do you think that we are not yet there at all, or do you think that we are at least on our way there? That's all, that and much more we'll be talking about here on CROSSFIRE. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, now, sometime in 2011, well, before we introduce our guest, let me just take us through this little detail. Now, sometime in 2011, the Department for International Development, DFID, gave a picture of women's presence in the legislature arm of some countries. Now, the statistics came out to say that South Africa had about 33.2% and 42% respectively in their upper and lower legislative chambers, while Kenya had about 27 and 20% respectively in the two chambers. Now, in Rwanda, women came out to take 61 out of 106, parliamentary seats, rather. And in Senegal, women occupy 65 of the 150 parliamentary seats. Now, let's look at Nigeria also. Now, on the Nigerian scene, only one female was among the 14 candidates that tried to get the nation's #1 seat. That was during the 2015 general presidential elections. And of course, we all know who Professor Remi Shonaya is.
Yes.
Now, after the National Assembly elections, 8 women made it to the Senate, which has 109 senators. That's just roughly 7.3%. While Pt.1 sits in the 360-member House of Representatives, that's we're talking about the lower chamber, all accounting to 4%.
That is very, very, very shocking.
When you just oppose that with what we have in other African nations.
Countries. And apart from other African countries, remember Nigeria is popularly referred to as the giant of Africa. So where others are doing one, we ought to be doing double. We ought to be setting the pace. We ought to be leading the way. We ought to be the ones shining the example. Well, unfortunately, we have had countries like Malawi who have had their female presidents. We have had countries like Sierra Leone who have also shown an interest. Liberia, of course, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, who is probably on her way out of Nigeria at the moment, having visited on a state visit to Nigeria.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at things like this, it is a very worrying picture. But we won't go ahead because we do have a guest.
But do you know what, even before we introduce a guest, what's more worrisome, sorry to cut you short, what's more worrisome is that the governorship elections produced just 4 women deputy governors out of 36 states.
Well, how many governors are women in Nigeria at the moment?
How many?
Governors are women?
Female?
Yes.
None.
Wow.
Well, 4 women deputy governors, and President Muhammadu Buhari on November 11th swore in the ministers, and out of the number, well, I beg to say that we have just 5 representatives, female ministers in the country today. And
may I also say that the portfolios that were given to these women were not portfolios that are key in, I mean, we're not saying that one portfolio, there are portfolios that are bigger, let's be honest, but the portfolios that were given to women were not anything tangible. So we have women, obviously, as the Minister for Women and Youth Affairs, we have women as ministers or ministers of state, but we do not have many substantial ministers who are women. We don't have women in positions whereby, and the unfortunate thing is that with the present administration, we've seen a decline in the number of appointments of women in public offices. What we had during the past administration was the rise of women in key positions. For instance, the Minister of the Coordinating Minister of the Economy and the Minister of Finance, Dr. Mrs. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, obviously was female. The minister, one of the biggest positions in government, the Minister of Petroleum was a woman, Mrs. Diziani Alison Madueke, and so many more. We had public appointments. We had the first Chief Judge of the nation, Justice Aluma Mukhtar, female. But in this administration, unfortunately, it seems that whilst we were seeing an upward view of women in politics, whilst we were seeing that, okay, women are finally coming to the fore, unfortunately, we are seeing them go down. Don't forget, the Millennium Development Goals, now the Sustainable Development Goals, one of the action points was to have gender equality, and part of that was to see more representation of women in politics. And that was what the previous administration must be applauded for. That was something they took really seriously and had a significant increase in public service. But that has not been the case. We are very disappointed, if the truth must be told. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen. On that note, I think it's very important that we bring in our guest today. He's a life coach, and he's someone who is very passionate about the cause of women, and I'm sure he would like to see more women in politics. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sam Oyem.
You're welcome to CROSSFIRE.
Thank you so very much. Such a nice one to be here with you guys. And I can see the heat born. It's about you, so let's talk about it.
About females.
Definitely you heard our analysis and the statistics which we rolled out. So what's your take on it all?
Oh, first, it's an institutional problem. Not just institutional, I think, again, is a little bit of a traditional thing because, like you all know, some part of African countries, of which Nigeria is a part of, is a very patriarchal society. So we are yet to make a major departure from this patriarchal mindset. First, we need to come to the point of understanding that women have a lot to offer.
Yes.
Now, this is psychological. This is very psychological because when you look at women, women are multitasking. And recently, a survey was made in the United States, and what they discovered was that companies that have more women in their managerial role seems to outperform companies that don't have as much women in those managerial roles. Yes. What that tells you is that if you have women injected into key managerial and leadership positions, you're likely going to have a situation whereby there's going to be an upward mobility in that particular country.
Very true.
We've seen that happen in China. Chinese women are beginning to lead some of the best organizations around the world right now. China is growing because more women are involved in what is going on there. Yeah. So every nation where you find women injected into the polity of that nation, you find significant growth. Yes. So and I think Nigeria too needs to do that. We need to get more women involved. So the challenge we're having is institutional. Yes. The government in itself needs to come to the place where it believes in the fact that women have something to offer.
So do you think that? Do you think that it's because they do not think that women are capable of holding these positions, as opposed to the fact that they just like power? And they say that once you get into power, it is difficult to get you out of power. So because it's always been a traditionally patriarchal society, it is difficult for the women to break the glass ceiling and actually get a position. So there are two things. Some people say that it's because women are they're not very, they're too emotional.
Better at home.
Yes, they're meant to be homemakers, and it's part of our culture, or just because they just don't want to leave the space. Not because we don't think you can do it, but because we don't want to give you the opportunity to do it.
Now, again, like you rightly said, it's about the paradigm. It's about perception, and we say that perception governs reality. How do these people think? The major issue here is that their thought patterns have not shifted since the 70s.
But I may want to disagree with you on that position, because your last statement was that men have to, they need to come to the realization that women have things to offer. Yeah. Now, when we look at the population of Nigeria, women account for over half of the Nigerian population as it is today. When it's time for elections, we see and we know that they rely a lot on women. They go to the market, they have, women empowerment schemes and all of that. All of this trying to win the votes of women, because they know that by the time they're able to get at least substantially the vote, or the percentage of women to support them, then they're halfway winning that election, because women also have ways of influencing the children at home and even their husband to voting for them. So I may want to disagree with you, because I believe strongly that these men in politics today, they understand the power of the women, or what they can offer. But the issue now is, why are they not allowing women to take the front row?
You are very correct. It's all about understanding what I think you're good for. See, we're dealing with mindsets.
So we're just going to go out there and cast our votes,
fine,
and
that's the point. So if all I think you're good for is to vote for me, influence, and you see the key word here is influence. Some of the most powerful influencers are women.
Yes.
And what do we define leadership as? We define leadership as influence. So if women are very strategic in influencing, and we define leadership as influence, why deny the woman the position when she actually has what it takes to carry out the assignment? So basically what we're saying is that there's a predominant paradigm amongst us men, particularly those who have been there before. And don't forget that in those days, most of the people who are ruling us now were people who have ruled us before.
Yes. So we even have an issue with men coming back to rule. It's not even a part. Even the men are not allowing other men to rule.
Fantastic. We have a group of men who are being used to, just check at who and who we have today. Predominantly people who have ruled us before. They are friends to one another, so they just want to keep themselves there because they believe that they have the answer to our problems. The reality is we have women who can shift the balance of power in this country today. If our men can come to that point, I'm talking about those in the elitist position, those who are in the political position, if they can come to that point of realizing, we have a lot of young ladies now who have double masters, who are doctorate degree holders, who have done so very well outside of this country. If only we can inject them in. First, it begins with knowing that they have something to offer. But we will not break that particular bound we put around ourselves because it's all about we, us, and our. You understand? So when these men shift the way they think and realize that there are others who can come on board and add something to this country and make a lot of impact in this country, when they begin to think that way, see, it all comes back to how they think.
All right, you say it all comes down to how they think,
yes.
And you have put it at the door of men in terms of if men can give the women opportunities to get to the position of power. Now, whilst that is right on one hand, how about women themselves pushing themselves to these opportunities? A lot of people have said, some people are saying that, well, it's yours for the taking. Anyone, it's a big cake, whoever has a long knife, come and cut your own piece of the cake. That women are the ones who are not pushing themselves enough. Do you think that is the problem, or do you think that no, men must first of all open the door before women can walk in?
You see, what you've just said now is very critical to our emancipation, particularly as a country. When I use that word emancipation, I use that very carefully. Let me go a little bit further. See, it's a two-sided problem. One, there is an institutional side to it, and the other side has to do with women themselves. Women should stop waiting for doors to be opened. Because if you're waiting for the men to open the door, my first point has to do with the fact that those who are there now should recognize that women can make a lot of difference.
Yes.
The other side is another election is coming in some years down the line.
3 years down the line.
Okay, so how can these women who can offer something to our country, how can they begin to galvanize themselves? How can they begin to network with themselves? There are women who have money in this country. They can begin to develop grassroots structure. Already our women are in different places in our country.
Yes.
We just need a woman to begin to galvanize these women together, form different coalitions. These women are even in the Women Market Society. Yes. They belong to the Farmers Club.
We have CEOs who are we have bankers who are CEOs, female bankers who are CEOs. We have women who are in the technical space and owning that space. We even have them
also occupying legislative positions.
Fantastic.
Let's look at the Senator Remi Tinubu also.
Yes.
And
talking about Remi Tinubu, we have to talk about her because she started up the debate again just very recently during the Senate debate on the budget. And she was even though she was going against her own party, she was speaking out against the fact that the amount of money that was allocated to the women's ministry was abysmal. It was absolute. It was something that she just couldn't stomach, even though it was her party that was in power. And she came out and she spoke very strongly about it, and a lot of women applauded her for what she said. So she said that enough was enough. I cannot remember the exact figure that was allocated to that ministry, but by the time she looked at all the parastatals and all the departments that were under that ministry compared to other parastatals that had more money, she thought there was no way they could even debate.
There was no comparison.
There was no comparison. So there are two aspects to this. Number one is the government's responsibility towards ensuring that department is fully funded. Then number two, the importance of having money to be able to have a say.
And the unfortunate part is that because as it is today, when you look at the economy of Nigeria today, it's predominantly controlled by men.
Yes.
Now, Professor Remi Shonaya, the 2015 presidential candidate on the Kowa Party, came out to say that women on their own need to redefine their polity. They should stop making themselves available, seeing themselves as, in their ashwebi light, that when it's time for political campaigns, they all dress gorgeous in the various ashwebis. They should stop coming out to the streets to dance and clap for these men. But now you said something, which we agree on, that we need to redefine, we need to fund ourselves. But when we look at the economy as it is today, it's actually being controlled by men. So don't just think that that control may actually work negatively in terms of resources, funds, and all of that to raise awareness, education, and actually even sponsor campaigns and push these women. There's a limit to how much funds that some of these women can galvanize on their own.
Yes.
So they need resources also from the men counterpart, particularly those who control the economy as it is today. And that may make it more difficult because they may actually want to frustrate the process, rather putting women they feel they can control to their own benefit.
That's what has happened in the past.
The past
women,
administration.
They feel they can control, and that's why women continue to be deputy governors who are just
figureheads.
Yes, figureheads, not doing a lot. Thankfully, nowadays, they're now called Commissioner of Education. But
now you just made a very powerful point. Let's get this whole thing straight. We have a huge population of women in this country. What are we doing with the critical mass? Women need to get their hearts together. We have a very powerful number of women in this country.
But sorry to cut you, but that number, when we look at the number of educated women, you cannot compare it to the number of uneducated women. Now, each time they come out to say women empowerment, and you're teaching a woman how to make maths, local maths, or you're teaching her how to make basket, or you're teaching her how to sew.
How to make beads.
When you look at advanced nations, that's not the kind of empowerment scheme they give to the women.
I get you right.
That is not a...
Now,
so at the end of the day,
yes.
When you look at it, you see that women are actually at a disadvantage, irrespective of the fact that we actually have people like Agha-Ineh and many other CEOs who are educated at the fore, but they're not sufficient enough to push the struggle, to push women out there to the fore.
I feel your pain. And you see, all of that, the pain we have as women, must now be nestled, crystallized into very clear-cut strategic plan. If there is no plan, we will still be talking about this in the next 5-10 years. What is the roadmap in the next 10, 15 years? What's a strategy, a clear-cut strategy for women to adopt? See, all the emotions, and I understand that it's part of the expression of a woman. You understand? Really, while men work with strategy, women sometimes focus more on emotions. If you focus on emotion, you're not going to get those positions. What's going to get you the position is a clear-cut 25-year strategy. What is the strategy? Who are the women who will galvanize? The educated ones.
Yes.
You understand that? The educated women listen, uneducated women will listen to women who are educated, who care about them, than they will listen to men.
Very true. So
can we begin to identify what key power women with integrity in the country? Let these women come together. Let there be a forum. Ayo, you guys can power that up, and let there be a forum where women can come together and draw up a strategic plan for the next 25 years on how to gradually begin to make an inroad into the governance of Nigeria without asking for the permission of the men.
All right, but apart from asking for permission of the men, there is still a role that men have to play.
I'm coming in there.
The role. In terms of policies, you talk about strategies, we also have to talk about policies.
Very true.
Government policies. In other parts of the world, what we find or what obtains is that we have affirmative action.
Very correct.
So for instance, in some Western countries, in any board, there must be a certain number of women on that board. It has to be a deliberate action to ensure that women are part of the decision-making process.
You just made a point now. You see what you just said now?
Yes.
Should be part of the strategy. That the women are going to say, okay, look, we're going to go to the National Assembly. We're going to go to the highest, whosoever is concerned. We're going to get to them and say, look, it has to be enshrined in our policy that women must be taken to so and so degree in offices and organizations and in governance and all of that. That should be where it all begins from. That there is an enabling environment from the governing point of view.
Yes.
Policies are made so that women are included in the governance of this country.
But who makes the policies, though?
Now, let me say this.
Men.
When it comes to making of these policies, don't forget that, please, you have already women scattered in different positions. If we just have one woman, don't forget that the civil rights movement in America was triggered by Rosa Parks. One woman who will not sit...
Supported also by a lot of men
had done the work
even women also had that fear in them, but it took the courage of men also to stand behind Rosa Parks.
Don't disempower yourself. This is the point I'm making here. Get this right.
You're talking about policies now.
The issue
in Nigeria is how long will this policy, or how long will it take these policies to materialize? My youngest sister No, she's a graduate of petroleum engineering. And guess what? In her department, petroleum engineering, they actually started off as 10 ladies in their department. I won't mention the name of the university in Nigeria. But guess what? Even lecturers, my sister will come and be like, Ishioma, I don't understand what's happening there. Even lecturers actually frustrate them, telling them to their faces that this course is not for women, this course is for men. She graduated and there were just 2 ladies in their department.
If you have that kind of attitude, how on earth?
Two ladies, because the other 8 were frustrated to go into mechanical engineering, chemical, and other branches of engineering. So you see at the end of the day that even the men in the system, the men in the education system who should be teaching and making sure that we have more women coming out to take this courses,
first of all,
they're frustrating them out. How long will this policies
I need to applaud your sister and say kudos to you wherever you are for finishing through and not allowing the sexist comments of the lecturers to deter you from your dreams, because a lot of women have cut off their dreams or cut down their dreams because of what men have said.
Now, Ishioma and Ayo, don't forget that I started with a very, very powerful point. And I guess it sounds so little, but it's very powerful. I talked about mindset.
Yes.
The predominant mindset of an average African man needs to shift. See, when we're dealing with, you make policy, you make all of this, if the mindset, what you're doing right now, reorientation, gradually, we need to do it. You need to be very strategic. Again, that comes into your strategy. Yeah. How do you use media to begin to gradually work on the psyche of men? How do you begin to market to men, nations who allow women, and how that programming, content, this should all be worked. What I'm saying is the emotions, the cry, the citing of examples won't change what's going on. You guys need to, you women, have to be very deliberate. You have to be intentional, strategic, in gradually changing our concept, our mindset. Because if that mindset prevails, we're not going to have the change we desire. You can make policies. If the man still feels that a woman coming into the place is going to be at his own disadvantage, he's not going to let you come through.
But the truth, from what I've noticed about Nigerian society, we have a plethora of laws, which is so amazing. If only we can implement them and practice them to the letter. I'm a lawyer, so I can tell you this confidently that we have a lot of amazing laws, but we're not actually enforcing those laws.
Who's going to enforce them?
When we look at the Nigerian society, like you said, we are more traditional than we try to be westernized. Because for everything we do, we always try to put in an element of our tradition into it. But when you look at the traditional level as it is today, it barely supports women taking active roles. Most of our cultures and traditions do not support it.
Women
exactly.
Take the back
So the issue now is it's going to be pretty difficult to achieve all of that, breaking that mindset without the help of the traditional rulers and leaders. Now, if they come into the picture to actually help break that mindset also, talk to men who are highly traditional in their attitudes and in their thinking and their behavior, it may seem like they're going against the traditions and norms of the land.
How many traditional rulers do we have that are women?
Okay, now
you
just hit a point.
I
now,
have
look,
it in my face.
See, Ishioma and Ayo, let's look at this carefully. See, taking positions of governance is not something that will drop in your hands. Those who are there will not give it to you just cheaply.
Very true.
Let's be frank. We're dealing with governance here. I'm not just going to sit down and have you just throw all this at me. You should be considerate about the women, and then tomorrow I just will come and say, okay, you guys, how about? No, it's not going to come that cheap. What I'm saying is, after we've all cried and said all this stuff, it's time for women to have a clear-cut strategy. And I'm talking about a down-to-top, bottom-up, down-to-top approach. First, how do we educate our girls? How do we go to the grassroots now? Those women who have money, how can they begin to set up schools in places where girls need to go to school? How can they set up the kind of schools that will get our girls to become science inclined, technology inclined, engineering inclined, mathematical inclined? How can those who have the money come together, form blocks, and set up institutions that will produce girls who are strong in STEM, science, technology, engineering, management, mathematics?
Particularly medicine also.
Fantastic. So we need a strategy. Education first. Let's get the women educated. Let's start gradually. Let's, okay, over the next 25 years, we want to produce young girls with a different educational mindset. You know, and right there where we're teaching them, we begin to burn into their consciousness. Hey, girls, listen to me. If we have to make it a purely girls' school, why not? So that we do not
Wouldn't that seem like primitive feminism?
We're not promoting feminism before.
See a gap. There's
Because
a problem.
There's a
We need
gap.
to do
We're trying to deal with the problem.
No, because I'm trying to understand the reaction of certain men also, how they respond to that. Oh, you guys are making Nigeria
you
a
see-
feminist country,
Do you know
a
that,
feminist state.
Ishioma, I'm just waiting for the calls to come in because I cannot wait to hear what the men who are sitting at home and watching
I'm
these
in
two
trouble right
women.
now.
No, you're not in trouble. We are in trouble. The men are going to be like, yes, you see why we don't want them to come into power? They will become disobedient to their husbands. They're just speaking anyhow. That's what a lot of people
see, there's a whole
might
lot
think.
of issues. See, what we need to do here is that women, if we're going to go into a position of power, number one, let's have a strategy. Let's begin to educate. We may not get into it in our time,
Yes.
but can we lay the foundation? Like I said about Rosa Parks. When Rosa Parks was in that bus, there was no man with her. If there were black men in that bus, they were seated.
Yes.
When they asked them to stand up, they stood. Rosa Parks said, how can I stand up? If I stand up, my children will keep standing up. She didn't ask for permission from a man to remain seated.
Very true.
On the ground that she wants the next generation to be empowered, she did something. Now listen, there are so many women today who can stand up and function as Rosa Parks and say, look, let's start now. Yeah. And don't forget that the civil rights movement that began then, when Rosa Parks decided not to stand up, it triggered something. Don't forget the boycott of the buses in Montgomery.
Yes.
It wasn't because Rosa Parks went to meet some men and told them boycott. She started first.
She took the lead.
She took the lead. The men followed. And before you know it, you had a case where Martin Luther King Jr. heard about the boycott in Montgomery. And that's how Martin Luther too was inspired to be part of the movement. One woman became a spark that triggered something that is global. We can
about
do
one
that.
woman that, or a woman that, created a spark. We can even come back home here in Africa. You know Leyman Bowie. I'll talk about her after the break. She's a powerful Liberian who was very instrumental to the ending of the second civilian war in Liberia. Amazing, inspirational woman. But we'll have to take a break right now. When we come back, we'll talk about Leyman and perhaps other women and then open the phone lines. It's still Crossfire. We'll be back.